Now, the other day, I was down on the coast visiting with my family, and I had a conversation with one of my cousins. He was amazed that I make money on YouTube, as is I am amazed that I make money on YouTube. The fact that people pay me to make stuff like this is baffling. You know, it's like trying to be humble and like, listen, I mean, if I really take the amount of time and effort and the cost of the equipment and everything else, like, really, I'm kind of paying to do this more than I'm actually making any money. And he told me something that was very poignant and just the right thing I needed to hear, which was, nah, don't think about that. And let me tell you how easy it is for me to not think about that. Because I think if I allow myself to actually, again, do that kind of math, I will fall into a very deep depression, as the kids would call it. So I'm not going to do the math. What's the point? With that logic, let's talk about the Adox Color Mission 200 film. They recently released a batch of it. Back in the day when they were producing Adox Color Mission more regularly, they made a bunch of it, and now they're cold storing it and then selling it in little parcels, part and parcel, to kind of maintain a relatively steady supply, which is great because, you know, it's good to have new film on the market, but it is a bit of a misnomer because it's not technically new film, it's old film, but it's stored properly, it doesn't really matter. The thing is, though, because of its exclusivity and because of all these other things, mainly the fact that it needs to ship from Germany, specifically Photo Impex, the price of this film is quite steep. In fact, I looked at the invoice I received from Photo Impex and was really shocked to find out that it was, well, you know, listen, if it were, you know, if we're doing math here, if we're going to do some math, I got 2 rolls and it cost me about, I think, $80. Now, fortunately for my sanity, the initial price was in euros. And in my mind, I can't do the conversion from USD to euro super quickly. So it just felt kind of like this big fugaze of like, I'm actually not spending any money. But then again, I'd look at my bank account and I realized I spent more money than I wanted to. It's a $40 roll of film, which means each shot roughly costs over $1, which is not great math if I'm completely honest, especially with my photographic capabilities. I listened to my inner cousin voice. Nah, don't worry about it. And that led to this beautiful euphoric moment of getting the film back after getting it developed and seeing just how fucking amazing, and I censored myself there. You're welcome, YouTube. Now, the thing is, not a lot has really been said about Color Mission 200 in the last few years. Some people may recall, I bring it up often, but there was a Color Mission Helios project that was supposed to be released, and that was going to be developed in-house at Adox. I don't think that ever really came to fruition, so we ended up with kind of nothing. It's a nothing burger of news, right? They made one film, and now Orwo won't let them use the facility anymore because they don't want to make NC200 Adox edition. They want to do their own thing, and because of that, now we need our facilities to make our stuff. Adox doesn't have the capabilities, at least from my understanding, of doing that in-house, so we're kind of at this weird impasse. In my mind, at least, Adox Color Mission 200 has been slept on a little bit. Granted, it is a very expensive stock of film, and it's very exclusive, rare, some could call it, but it elicits the similar feelings I had shooting like some newer expired AGFA film, where it's just these punchy, vibrant colors, and it really begged the question that I don't really ask myself all that often, but it's important. It's a very important question. How do you want to remember these things? There's this old expression a very long time ago. Some psychologist was asked like how the human brain works. Back in like the 1800s, the equation was the human mind works like a clock. And now as we talk about the human brain, we equate it to a computer. Now the reason I bring this up is because we like to compare things. And by we, I mean all of us, myself included, as shown in many of my videos. But the idea of comparison is to take a thing that we know and relate it to something else that we know. And that way we can hopefully make some kind of connection betwixt the two, have a larger, more general understanding of these processes. Now, the interesting thing about this is it's a also framing device. This is a great way in which we can explore what was prevalent at that time period. For instance, the clock versus computer thing, the human mind working like a clock is because they didn't have computers back then. Now that we have a computer, at some point we'll probably develop some kind of like supercomputer, which point we'll think that that's smarter than the human brain, even though that's just not even feasible, but whatever. The point being is we compare things to what we know based on what we know. The reason I bring all of this up now is because I want to tie it into another point. Just going to kind of keep the connections rolling here. And that other point would be the Super 8 scene from Paris, Texas. This is unequivocally one of the most beautiful things ever filmed. There's just no words to fully describe the pain and beauty and sadness of this imagery other than it is perfection. It is a sentimental piece of nostalgia. It is everything you want to see in home videos, except mixed with the heartbreaking reality that romance, at least in this context, is dead. This feeling of joy, remembering the good times, all of this stuff kind of combined in this bittersweet symphony, of just utter beauty. The best thing about that is it was shot on 8mm. And the only reason I say the best part about that is not because I'm getting paid under the table by Kodak, although I wish I was. My frustration with this kind of stems back to the CamSnap CS8, where it's the simulacra of shooting with something that is reminiscent of a Super 8 camera, but delivering the garbage quality of an iPhone with a grain filter overlaid. The physical experience of holding a cheap plastic thing in the housing of a Super 8 camera system, but you're getting the video quality from an iPhone. So it's this weird mishmash of different feelings that ultimately end up delivering nothing. Take thousands of pictures on my phone, a cool thing, or a camera I'm taking apart. I want to remember how this part goes. Each roll of film that you shoot has 36 exposures, or 24, or 12, whatever. It serves as almost a precious resource where each one of those things seemingly is more valuable by virtue of the fact that there are a finite amount of them as opposed to an infinite. Same can be said about the Adox color mission. Because there's a finite amount of rolls, it makes it a little bit more important. It makes it feel a little bit more special, more valuable. Each frame costs a lot more than a gold 200 or a color plus 200, but it also carries that kind of value as well, where you really feel that in each frame because it is one of a finite amount of film of the stock left. But the real reason that I bring this up, it is a different medium that you're operating with. If you only take photos on phones, if you only take videos digitally, if you only do these things, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Do what works for you. But as you go back through your camera rolls, you go back through your photo album, your collection of photos, videos, and things like that, you are viewing it through the framing device of the medium which you chose. Okay, so you're choosing digital. The memories that you're reliving by virtue of going through them are in digital. The way that you remember these moments is colored by that digital medium. But when you go back and you view the photos that you've shot on film, it is no longer up to you so much as it is up to the film that you chose. The way that different colors are rendered, the way that the shadows look versus the highlights, the way that the textures are in all of the different elements, the way that the grain is structured, the way that it's sharp, the way that it's soft. The reason that I bring all of this up is because I got to see some very important people to me a couple weeks ago, who I don't get to see very often. And it also coincided with me finishing the role of Adox Color Mission through the Olympus M1. I want to talk about that in a little bit. But this experience of getting to see these people, getting to capture these memories of which we used to hang out all the time, and now due to distance and all this stuff, I don't get to see them as much. Those moments are infinitely more valuable than anything I can fully render. And I captured some of it on the Adox Color Mission film in just a way that I'll remember these experiences we have through the punchy, saturated colors of Adox Color Mission. I'll remember all the inside jokes that we made through the lens of the Olympus M1. And that's something I'm very grateful for. So when it comes back to, let's talk about the cost of these, let's do the math, let's break it down. How much does it cost? Nah, don't think about that. It's a lifetime full of memories. I personally want to shoot them on film. They're not going to be the best photos you've ever seen in your life. I don't want them to be. I want them to mean something to me, to the people I care about, and that's really it. Now, I was drifting off to sleep last night, prepared to have beautiful dreams of stumbling upon a $5 Leica at a yard sale. I was rudely awoken by a call from my editor, who had just been reviewing the footage that you watched just now. My editor said, "Hey, this video in which you are supposed to be talking about Adox Color Mission, you spend actually next to no time talking about Adox color mission. You're bollocking about whatever else, and you're not really talking about the film. And I hate to admit it, but I think my editor might be right. But let's keep that between us because I cannot afford a raise right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to supplement that video with this piece here, in which I'm going to talk about some of the shots I got, the results, and why I think this film is as good as it is. We'll begin with this image here of a sunset, nothing too crazy. You get like these dark silhouetted trees and everything like that. But you have this really nice, deep dynamic range between the highlights, more towards the bottom of the frame where the sun kind of rays are hitting the clouds, all the way up to the darker portions of the clouds at the top of the frame. And there's a nice separation between the darker portions of the cloud and the darker portion of the tree silhouette, which really creates this interesting dynamic image, I think, at the very least. The framing's not anything awesome, but the film's ability to render all the different details and the different colors does a phenomenal job there. Moving on, we have this picture of Peninsula Park here in Portland. Beautiful park, and it was a beautiful day. Partly cloudy, if I remember correctly. You see these individualized pops of color from all of the different roses, and you almost feel like I can zoom in on every single one of these flowers and count the petals. There's just this vibrancy to it. There's this vivid life to it. This has a really nice texture to it, a really nice grain. It has a very tactile feel to it, I feel like, when I'm looking through these. Now, this next three set of images are the same shot, roughly speaking, because it was all handheld, and I shot at different exposures. I think overexposed, especially in these highlight roses in the front, you're getting too much bounce from those. Now, the green in the backdrop, the quad of trees, each of those has these brilliant pops of color and light to it, and I feel like that's greater accentuated in the stop overexposed. But even on exposure, I still feel like there's plenty to love there, and you're not getting these overblown highlights in the yellow roses in the foreground. One where it's kind of a stop underexposure. You still get some like definition detail in the green trees in the back. It's just amazing because in the on exposure and stop overexposed, the sharpness and the clarity of those trees is fascinating to me. Now, a lot of that has to do with the lens I was shooting on as well. The Olympus 50mm 1.8 Zuiko lens. It's no joke. It's a really quality kit lens, but it does work very well, I think. The optics are very sharp, and I think that that is displayed here to great effect. This shot is definitely underexposed quite a bit. It is a bit of a tricky shot, though, because as you notice, the foreground is heavily shadowed, and then the highlights of where the boats are significantly brighter. It's going to be a really hard proposition to get proper exposure between the two, and it kind of gets this like gritty feeling to it in the shadows in the foreground here. Not really a favorite look of mine, to be honest. This could be very simply corrected had I stepped forward a few feet and not gotten so much of this foreground in there. In spite of that, I feel like it holds on to the highlights fairly well, but if anything, I think it probably could have used a bit more light, because as you see in the backdrop here, there's this like muddiness to the trees on the rest of the island there. So I think this is more of an issue of me exposing the image improperly, and I think nowhere else is that more evident than this picture here. You're getting a lot of bounce off of the surface of the water, a lot of reflection, as you can see, on my friend's face and on the trees, and on my friend's kind of in the backdrop a little bit, but they're still pretty shadowed by the trees and by everything else. And yet you can still pick out individual details here. The light that is blasting her wearing her white shirt, you can still see details in the shirt, you can still see details in her face. It holds on to that very well. I think if anything, this is a film that could probably be more comfortable being a little bit overexposed more than anything else. And then also in the foreground here with the kind of like slag pile that's going on, you get all these little individual textures from the concrete blocks. We're seeing all of that. We're seeing the depth of the water here, and in the backdrop as well, we're getting good detail on the trees, which is nice. It doesn't look nearly as muddy as the sailboat picture. The pictures themselves weren't really like the best things ever, but in terms of the quality of film, the experience of shooting it, 10 out of 10, really, really worthwhile. And this has been a film I've wanted to try using for a while, so it was really special to finally get my hands on it. It was unexpected, but it was really well worth the wait, and I would argue worth the cost if I want to do the math. I think that is sufficient discussion on the Adox Color Mission film. We'll get back to me standing on a hill talking about some random shit and wrap it up. The final point I want to make is about the Olympus M1. There's a little footnote here. I've been shooting with this camera a lot this year, and I gotta say it has become a fixture for me. It is probably one of my favorite cameras. In the year that I said I was not going to buy any cameras for myself,
the lie detector determined that was a lie.
I bought this one, and I gotta say, I am so glad I did. It's an OM1, but with a little extra pizzazz to it. It just feels like something I can constantly trust and rely upon, and it feels like a great baseline in which I can test other films, I can test any number of different things. I want to do that through the M1 because I know I can count on it, and I love that feeling. I shoot with a lot of broken shit, so it's nice to have something that just works and delivers consistent quality results. It feels good to have that like set standard, that baseline, and I just want to make a note of that before I talk about it later on in the year. But anyway, that is the Adox Color Mission. It's expensive. It's not going to be for everybody. I don't know if they're going to release any more of it in the future. It'd be kind of nice if somebody in America got their hands on some so you don't have to pay like $40 for shipping. But at the same time, I'm very grateful for the experience of getting my hands on some. It's been a film that I've wanted to shoot with and try out for years. So when Photo Impacts was like, hey, we've got some to release, I was very quick to order some. And I gotta say, after shooting it, I am beside myself with joy. And I'm really glad that I didn't do the euro to dollar price conversion, because I feel like that would have maybe rendered this whole video irrelevant, which might have been better for my knees and my ankles, if I'm honest. But hopefully you guys enjoyed it all the same. Thank you very much for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you all on the next one. Also reach out to Kodak, see if they want to like sponsor me. I'm willing to make something work. I feel like my content is not good enough, but you know, it's quirky, it's fun, it's unique to some degree. I don't know, there's elements to love, there's a lot to love, but you know, hit me up, hit up my line. I'll answer your call. What up?